What is going on, guys? Money Webby here, back again, week 6 with my favorite tournament picks of the week. Some guys that are going to be under-owned, have really good upside in their matchups that can lead you to the top of the leaderboards by kind of being a little bit more, getting some more leverage against the rest of the field, being a little bit different with some guys that can still get it done in good matchups. So before we get going, be sure to slap a like in the video if you guys are enjoying these NFL DFS videos. You can comment any suggestions down below if you want me to do anything a little bit different in these videos. And if you happen to be new here, if you're not subscribed, if you want to continue to get these NFL DFS videos, definitely subscribe, and you can hit the bell icon after to get alerted every time I upload. So do all that good stuff. Let's get into it. Andrew Luck first up. I feel like I've mentioned him a lot in my GPP videos, but the same thing goes here. A ton of passing attempts like every single game recently. 59, 62, 40 against Philly, then 53 against Cincinnati. So he has a lot of good opportunities to get a ton of fantasy points. The price tag isn't too bad at $6,200, and also the Jets are going to be without 2 out of their 3 cornerbacks. So Tremaine Johnson out and Buster Skrine. Skrine isn't too good, but Tremaine Johnson is a really good cornerback. Not really good, but good on the outside that can free some things up. They're going to be without T.Y. Hilton, but with those injuries, some guys like Chester Rogers, Ryan Grant can get an easier, or just have an easier job of getting open. And Eric Ebron, he looked really solid against the Patriots last week. Naheem Hines, really good pass catching back. So Luck, he can still get it done. They're probably going to struggle again here running the ball, so I don't see why Andrew Luck wouldn't throw the ball over 40 times again here. And they've been adding some more deeper kind of patterns to his play with the average, the passing attempts per. The passing attempts on average is going up a little bit with those deeper plays, which adds some more upside to his game with more passing yards. And he definitely has that touchdown ability throwing the ball, as they're not really running the ball too much. So against this banged up Jets secondary, I think he can definitely reach that upside yet again here. So that's my first quarterback. His ownership is projected to be pretty low as well, probably because more people are gravitating to a guy like Cam Newton or Jared Goff, which is understandable. We're going to try to leverage that, hope Cam Newton and Jared Goff don't do too good, and Luck kind of has that big upside game again. So next up, Andy Dalton. I mentioned him in my first video this week, but his ownership isn't projected too high. So I think this is the guy, like I mentioned, has really good upside. This game could turn into a shootout between the Bengals and Pittsburgh. Both offenses definitely have the ability to get it going. The Steelers have one of the worst passing coverage units in the whole NFL. So guys like Boyd, Mixon out of the backfield, even A.J. Green against Joe Hayden can definitely beat their man and give Andy Dalton a lot of passing yards. I think he can hit over 300 yards in this game. And the Steelers, their one strength of their defense has been their run defense. So Andy Dalton, I think he'll be throwing the ball a little bit more here. And they're implied 26.5 points. So Andy Dalton can definitely have some big upside in this game. Not a bad price tag at $6,300. Going to be a little bit under-owned. So that's my second quarterback. And for my final guy, this is kind of like the polar opposite of Andrew Luck. The passing attempts and opportunities have not been great. But if there was ever a matchup for Russell Wilson to get it going, I think it's going to be this one against Oakland, because they have one of the worst pass rushing units. That's really the biggest concern with Seattle, while they're trying to keep it on the ground. But if they're going against a defense that can't really rush the passer, I could see them opening up the offense a little bit more, going into some more kind of longer developing plays, kind of getting Tyler Lockett deep on some passes, getting Doug Baldwin a little bit more involved over the middle because he had one target last game. And then Oakland, and also their pass coverage is not very good. So if there's ever a matchup for Russell Wilson to get it going, I think it's going to be this one. Another team here, when the Seahawks, that are implied a good amount of points, 25.5. And I just think he has the touchdown upside. And also, he could rush the ball a little bit more. He has been practicing in full. So I'm guessing he's feeling closer to 100% with that hamstring injury, and there's running some more read option with the run, so going back to that shotgun kind of read option approach. And it seems like whenever I'm watching, Wilson has the opportunity to kind of pull the ball back himself and take off for 10 to 20 yards. So if he just does that once or twice in this game, that will add to his upside, can get closer to that 20 plus point fantasy point total, and this game could honestly be a shootout. I mean, Seattle's defense has not been great by any means. Oakland defense definitely not good. So both these defenses can definitely struggle, and we could see a game closer to what we saw against the Rams last week, like a 30 to 27 kind of game here over in London. I think that's where it's being played. I know somewhere over in Europe. But Russell Wilson, if he can just get back to what he used to do the last year or so, this is going to be the perfect matchup for him to do so. And also Doug Baldwin, he's saying he's 100% healthy, so I don't see why they wouldn't open up the offense a little bit more. So that is a good leverage point, I think, for a guy that's been kind of letting people down. But Oakland is the perfect opportunity for him to break out and have one of those Russell Wilson kind of games. So now for running back, a lot of these upper kind of salary guys are going to be high owned. So I'm going to kind of go in a little bit deeper here with some more cheaper options that I think could be like good maybe pairings with the higher owned guys to get a little bit more leverage against other lineups. So Carlos Hyde is going to be my first one. His upside isn't crazy like receiving the ball, but he's just been getting a lot of touches even though he hasn't been too productive with them. Like, he's still got 19 touches against a stingy Baltimore defense, and he got 9.7 DraftKings points. Like, that's not too bad. Baltimore has one of the best defenses in football. The Chargers' run defense is a lot worse compared to Baltimore. So I think he can have a more effective game on the ground and get around like 15 to 20 carries here. Again, the Chargers passing defense is pretty good. They've been improving over the last few weeks, getting back to what we've kind of known them for in 2017 with that good cornerback play. So that kind of opens up things for Carlos Hyde, I think. Just a really good price tag of $4,900 considering how many touches he's getting per game and all the touchdown opportunities he's been getting. He has the fourth most red zone rushes out of all running backs, so he could easily put the ball in the end zone once or twice here, and that just gives him really good upside. Like, the name of the game is scoring. If the guy's scoring for you, then you're going to be looking pretty good in your GPP. So Carlos Hyde is definitely a guy that has that ability, and he's a nice price tag at $4,900. So that's my first running back. And for my second guy, this is a little bit contingent, if that's the word I'm looking for, on Crowell's status, but he only got in one limited practice this week. So I would imagine he's going to be playing at less than 100% or he doesn't play at all. So that means Bilal Powell will probably get more snaps, some more touches here in this game. He still got 20 carries last game, even though he fumbled against Denver, and he was pretty efficient with it. Obviously, Crowell had a huge game with like over 200 yards, so that could kind of take away from a little bit, but with Crowell probably less than 100%, I think Powell will be just fine here in this game and be able to get around 15 touches. And also, this game could turn into one where the Colts get up, and when they're down, the Jets tend to go more to Bilal Powell here with the plays, as he's a better pass catching back. Like, he has that opportunity to get some catches of the backfield when they've been down. He got 4 against Jacksonville and 5 against Miami. So that kind of adds to his game. And obviously, if Crowell is out, then he'd probably be the red zone back as well. That's kind of been limiting his upside with him not able to score with any rushing opportunities. So if they get down in the red zone, if Crowell is out, then you're going to be see Powell in there, and he can definitely get another touchdown or so on his total, and he's a really good price tag at $4,500. I think if Crowell is out, Powell could have a sizable ownership, but I feel like you kind of have to bite the chalk in a GPP because his value could be so good at $4,500. Like, he could get 20 DraftKings points with Crowell out in this game, and the Colts also have been allowing the 4th most receiving yards to running backs, so that kind of adds to his upside. They are getting their slot cornerback back in Kenny Moore, who's been really good in coverage, so that could kind of limit a guy like Quincy Enunwa. So the short game could go through more of the running back like Bilal Powell. So that's my second running back. Really good upside with a limited or not playing Crowell. And for my final guy, a little bit of a narrative here, but MARSHAWN LYNCH finally going back up against his old team in Seattle. He could be running like a man possessed. Some extra Skittles maybe here in this game. And whenever they've been close in games, I think this game should stay fairly close as both defenses really struggle. So I think Oakland can have their way in offense, and also Seattle can. So it can definitely turn into a shootout with a ton of touchdown opportunities for beast mode. And whenever it's been close, he's been getting a good amount of touches. I mean, he's gotten 23 in this game against Cleveland, 22 against Miami, and 20 against Denver in those 3 close games. The other 2 games are blowouts, so he wasn't able to get over like 15 touches. But like I said, this game should stay close. I think Seattle's only favored by 3 points. And MARSHAWN's been running really good this year. I mean, whenever he's been given the ball, it seems like he's been breaking tackle after tackle. So I could see beast mode going ham in this game. Seattle's run defense hasn't been too good. They've been allowing 4.7 yards per carry. That's the 7th worst out of all defenses. So at 5,300, I could see Beast Mode running for like 80, maybe even close towards to 100 yards and putting in a touchdown here in this game. So another guy with good touchdown opportunity should be able to get a lot of touches at a cheap price. So kind of similar to Carlos Hyde in that same kind of fashion. So those are the 3 running backs, Hyde, Powell, and Beast Mode. And now for wide receivers, the first guy I'm looking at is going to be JUJU Smith-Schuster. Recommended them earlier this week, but the same thing goes. I think Antonio Brown could be limited here by William Jackson, and Antonio Brown's kind of been struggling this year with that Le'Veon Bell on the field for whatever reason. JUJU has just been playing a lot better with that Le'Veon. It went back to last year, I believe, when Le'Veon was out. JUJU had some solid games, and the targets have been extremely good in these kind of shootout kind of games against Kansas City, Tampa Bay, and Baltimore, where they're working for where they're working from behind. I could see that happening again here, where it kind of turns into a shootout. They could be down like a touchdown or so to Cincinnati, because I think Cincinnati will be able to move the ball and score pretty easily against Pittsburgh. So JUJU could get closer to 10 targets here in this game. And the best way to attack this Cincinnati defense is through the air against their slot cornerback. That's where they've been allowing the most yards in coverage against Denard. So at 7,300, I think JUJU could be a little bit overlooked with a guy like Julio Jones in that kind of high, the $8,000 range, and then AJ Green in that high $7,000 range. So people could easily be looking over at JUJU after a tough game over the last 2 games as well, only 13 and 10 DraftKings points. So this is a nice blow-up spot, a nice bounce-back spot for JUJU. That's my first wide receiver. And for my second guy, another guy I mentioned earlier, but Amari Cooper at 5,200. He's just been so inconsistent, which is kind of perfect for GPP because he has that big game opportunity. So he had 29 and 24, 2 out of the first 5 weeks. And if we follow the trend, he's due for a game, right? He went 2-24, so nice bounce back there. And then he kind of took a little nap, 3 DraftKings points, but then he woke back up for 29, and then he took another nap. And it's time to wake up now against Seattle. This team doesn't really have a lockdown corner, which has kind of been his nemesis over the last couple of years. When he faces like a really lockdown guy like Casey Hayward last week, or a guy like even like Howard who is shadowing him, he kind of just gets lost in the fold, I feel like. But Seattle doesn't have that guy. Like they have like a bunch of like okay cornerbacks, but I think Amari Cooper could get the better of him in this game. We know he has the big game upside, and this is a spot where he can definitely take advantage of the matchup. So 5,200. Good price tag considering his big game upside and big kind of play potential. So that's my second wide receiver. And for my third guy, we're going to go with MOHAMED SANU, the best value of the receivers in Atlanta. And honestly, he probably should be the second highest priced guy. It's just that Calvin Ridley had those huge games. But based on the usage, SANU is probably the better option just based off the targets and stuff like that. Over the last 3 weeks, he's had 7, 9 targets and 7 the last 3, and he scored 2 out of those 3 games. So like I said, this game should be a shootout between the Falcons and Buccaneers. I don't see any way how it doesn't turn into a shootout. The Falcons are implied 30 points here in this game, and the best way to attack Tampa Bay so far has been through the slot against MJ Stewart. He's allowed the most yards out of all Tampa Bay cornerbacks, so I think SANU could have another one of those games, like 5 grabs, good for like 70 yards and a touchdown. That's a really good price tag at 4,800 for a piece, and probably one of the best offenses of the week, if not the best offense. So MOHAMED SANU, and his ownership isn't projected too high, surprisingly. So that's my final guy. Nice little game stack in that one if you want to go towards that Atlanta game. I think SANU is definitely a good piece in there. So Cooper, JUJU, and SANU are the 3 wide receivers. And now for tight ends, we're going to be looking at another bounce-back candidate in this game, and Jordan Reed going against Carolina. He was lost in the fold last week, similar to Amari Cooper. For whatever reason, only had 2 targets, 1 grab for 21 yards. So if they're watching back the film and they're like, what the hell are we doing in offense? I think they're going to be thinking, we got to get Jordan Reed back involved. He's our best player in offense, and this is a solid matchup against Carolina. Their coverage hasn't been great against tight ends. I think he can definitely beat these safeties and stuff like that in coverage. And they have a lot of guys that are banged up in offense. Chris Thompson's banged up. Adrian Peterson's banged up, so they could run the ball less. And also Josh Doxson on the outside is banged up. He's a game-time decision. And also Paul Richardson is a game-time decision. So, like, they got to go to someone. And Jordan Reed is the last man standing and their best option, even when these guys aren't banged up. So I don't see why they don't give him around, like, 7-8 targets again here. And he gets around 5 grabs for, like, 60, 70 yards. And he should be a good red zone threat. They kind of use him. They isolate him a lot in the red zone and give him some opportunities, so he definitely has the ability to score here. And Carolina has a solid run defense, so I don't see them running the ball with that much success, meaning they'll have to pass the ball a lot more to a guy like Jordan Reed. And he's going to be under-owned considering how bad he did last week. So a nice little leverage spot for Jordan Reed there, who could easily be the #1 tight end on the slate. And then David NJOKU here. He's kind of going to be under-owned, but his opportunities have been really good over the last 2 weeks. 11 targets. 7 targets. He's developing some more chemistry with a guy like Baker Mayfield. And like I said, the Chargers cornerbacks are starting to play a little bit better with a guy like Casey Hayward and stuff like that. I think they could limit the wide receivers, meaning that they'll go through the running backs and tight ends more here in this matchup. So I could see NJOKU finally finding the end zone, maybe getting around 5 to 6 grabs here again. So a nice little value with a guy around like 10-point. Like a 10-point kind of ceiling, and maybe with a touchdown, he gets around 16 to 17 maybe. So a 3,800, nice little price tag. And there's not many other tight ends that I feel comfortable recommending that are going to be under-owned. So I would just say you probably should bite the chalk if O.J. Howard. I'm guessing O.J. Howard either plays and he's like less than, like not playing as many snaps as he normally does. He just got into full practice somehow on Friday, even though they're already talking about him being out this week. So I don't really know what's going on in that game, honestly, with O.J. Howard. I would assume Cameron Brate would still be a good play, even if O.J. Howard does play, just because Howard is coming off an MCL injury like 2 weeks ago. So I still do like Cameron Brate, and honestly, that could have kind of lowered their ownership if O.J. Howard does play. So at 3,700, he's still a good play. And also Austin Hooper, he's going to be highly owned, but if you want to bite the chalk with him, he's a really good matchup against Tampa Bay. So that's kind of the opportunities you can do. You can be a little bit different with a guy like Jordan Reed and NJOKU, who are going to be a little bit under-owned. But then in the other end, you can just use the tight end as a kind of a spot where you bite the chalk and then be a little bit different at running back, wide receiver, and quarterback. And now for defenses. The Vikings, their ownership isn't going to be too high. I think more people might gravitate to the Bears, the Rams against Denver. So at 3,800, if you want to pay the price for them, obviously they have really good upside against Arizona, a team that doesn't really move the ball that well. And they could turn the ball over, and Josh Rosen could easily be sacked a few times here in this game. So the Vikings, they got to go in a little bit more last week. Against a better offense, obviously, than the Cardinals in Philadelphia. They were able to get 13 DraftKings points, got a touchdown. So there's definitely a scenario here where Josh Rosen really poops his pants. Their pass blocking is extremely bad for Arizona. Their offensive line is banged up, so the Vikings pass rush could definitely get after Josh Rosen and force him to throw some turnovers and fumble and stuff like that. So that's definitely a good option if you want to pay it for them. And now the Browns could be sneaky here in this game against the Chargers. I know that the Chargers offense has looked pretty good this year, but this Browns defense is underrated, and you get them at a good price here at 2,600. The Chargers pass blocking isn't great. I think Myles Garrett could kind of break loose in this game and get a sack or two here. And Phillip Rivers can be very inconsistent. Like, he could have one of those games where he's just throwing very poor throws all over the field and throw like a pick or two. He is kind of pick prone over his career. So the Browns are an interesting play here. I think they're going to be under-owned. And at 2,600, it's a really good value if you want to kind of pay down that defense with the defense that is good. But they kind of have a tough matchup against a solid Chargers offense. But like we know with the Chargers, they're very hot and cold. I mean, they're going to Cleveland here. Some of these West Coast teams can struggle playing on the East. I guess Cleveland's kind of the East Coast. The struggle kind of like traveling over towards the East Coast on a 1 o'clock game. So I could see Phillip Rivers laying an egg here. There's definitely the possibility of that at a good price tag at 2,600. For my final defense, the Panthers. I mean, Washington, like I mentioned, they're really banged up. I mean, Jordan Reed could still have a really good game, but Panthers could still just like make Alex Smith look really bad here again on Monday night. I watched the whole Monday night game. Alex Smith looked extremely bad against the Saints defense. I mean, there was guys open. Like, we saw Paul Richardson open a few times. He could have caught a touchdown, but Alex Smith, like, just threw it in the ground, and he was just not really picking out the pass rush very well either. I didn't really have a great sense of the guys rushing after him. It seemed like he was just holding on to the ball too long. So maybe guys weren't getting open in some situations because Dawson was out, and then Richardson kind of was playing banged up through the game. So maybe that was the situation, but still, like, their offense looked really bad. And with all those injuries, like I mentioned, with Thompson, AP, Dawson, and Richardson all banged up, then the Panthers could kind of capitalize on this matchup and have another good game. Their defense, honestly, has been playing really good for, like, fantasy points, so 12, 10, and 12. 3 out of the last 4 games, so that's definitely encouraging. And they did get Eric Reed, who's a big help in the safety department. So at 2,600, another good value here against an offense that is sputtering right now. So that's my final defense. So you got the Panthers, the Browns, if you want to go cheaper, underround, and if you want to pay up for a defense that could be overlooked just because the other values below them, the Vikings are definitely in play. So that is it for all the GPP plays, the tournament picks. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Slap a like on it if you did. Like I said, it really helps me out with all the likes. So thank you if you could do that. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'm not sure why you wouldn't. Definitely hit that subscribe button for some great information. I do a good amount of research in all of these videos, so I hope you guys are enjoying them. You can comment any questions you might have down below in the video. You can follow me on Twitter at MoneyWebby. If you want some great tweets, some hilarious stuff, the funniest tweets on Twitter, you can definitely follow me there. So good luck in the tournaments, guys. I hope you make a ton of money, and we'll see you back here again next time.